Diolch, Llywydd. Minister, you've just been talking about the local government proposed reforms. One of the issues which I think has emerged from what you've told us so far is the theme of localism versus the need for systematic and mandatory ways of working, to use your own phrase. In other words, we need councils to be able to operate in their own way to some extent, but they have to conform to Wales-wide standards in some areas. We had the issue recently in England of whether or not a council could or should have excluded the press from a meeting. Now, there is an issue in Wales of the variability of TV coverage of meetings, council meetings. So how far will you go down the road of enforcing systematic and mandatory working in this area?
Thank you, Llywydd. Well, Gareth Bennett will be aware, I know, because he's raised it with me before, that our white paper makes a series of proposals which will place greater obligations on local authorities, both to broadcast their proceedings and to make their proceedings available to the public. Those parts of the white paper, I think, were broadly welcomed in the consultation. We have relied to an extent on encouragement in this field in the past. The local government bill will give us an opportunity to legislate to make sure that standards of openness and accessibility that exist in very many of our councils are made available in them all.
Yes, thanks for that. I think the approach of encouraging first is certainly wise, although at some point, there may be a need for actually enforcing what you've brought in. So, moving on from that is the issue of when you do intervene in cases if a council gets into difficulties. For instance, there's been a few long-running pay scandals in local government in Wales in recent years, at least one of which is still going on. Now, I don't want you to comment on any specific cases, but in general, is there a role for you to intervene in cases where there are long-running problems which don't seem to be getting resolved and which may tend to bring local government into disrepute?
Well, Chair, there are, and quite properly, established procedures that govern the way that Welsh ministers can intervene when things go astray in local government. That often relies on advice from the regulators, including the Wales Audit Office, and where we have had to intervene where there have been failing education departments or failing social services departments. Those protocols and those ways of doing things, I think, have generally been effective. They've allowed us to identify the places where intervention is needed, and very importantly, they include a pathway out of intervention as well. So where local authorities are able to demonstrate that they have put right the things that have been identified, then we're able to withdraw and allow them to resume those responsibilities. And we see that being done successfully at the level of individual services, and in the case of Ynys Môn, in the case of the council as a whole, a successful recovery by that local authority. What I would say to Gareth Bennett is that I think it is very important to learn the lessons from that, and where we have other instances where processes may appear to go on for too long and be difficult to reach a resolution, then we need to look back at that and see whether those processes need to be tightened up, and where they rely on the ability of Welsh Government to intervene to make sure that those circumstances are clear and cannot be avoided.
Yes, thanks. You've cited the example of Ynys Môn where there was a resolution, and I think you're right to look at past examples and where there has been success from the Welsh Government to look at that as a way of dealing with cases which come before you in future. Now, again, it's slightly sticky because I don't want to refer to a specific instance, but if there is a case where a pay dispute has been in the news quite a lot and it's been going on for 4 years, would the 4-year mark tend to interest you as a point at which you may need to get involved in that theoretical case?
Well, I think I will put it like this, that even in such a case, there will be a set of rules that are being followed. I will be wanting to make sure from the Welsh Government's point of view that the rulebook as it exists today is being followed scrupulously. The assurance I wanted to give the member in answer to his second question is that when that matter does come to a conclusion, what I will want to do will be to revisit that whole process to see whether we think that the rulebook as it operated was commensurate with the issue that it was there to resolve. And if we feel that, in the light of that experience, the rulebook needs to be revised and a fresh set of arrangements put in place that ensure that intervention is possible in a timely way and which allows issues to be resolved, then that's the set of lessons that I will hope we will be able to learn from that experience.
Question 3.
Question 3, Mark Isherwood.